Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulihi al-kareem. Wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Amma ba'd. So, I wanted to talk to you today about loving your children fiercely and protecting them always. I know this may seem to many of us basic to the point where you would think, why would you even mention it? Why even talk about it? That's common sense. But I'd argue today, the lines of what a parent should do, in certain communities at least, has begun to be blurred. And so, this to me has made me become more passionate about helping to inspire other moms and moms-to-be to really think about what does it mean to be a mother, to guard your children, to nurture and protect them, and how long should you be absent? How long should you neglect that duty? And what is the balance? What is the nuance? And how do you go about maintaining your position in your child's life while also balancing other duties as well? And what I've begun to notice is that more and more now, people are putting their kids off and seeking their own selfish aims. And this may be just an American problem. I can't speak for other countries, but what I can speak upon is what I have noticed. And what I have noticed is a lot of women, unfortunately, within my vicinity, they are, okay, they're not Muslim, but they work a lot. They use their free time to drink, and sometimes they put their kids with the grandparents or with a nanny or at a daycare, and then they go off to kind of have a girls' night, and usually girls' nights are a little too frequent. And if you notice, this is beginning to make it normal to see your kid as something that is part-time, something that you can pawn off on someone else, and that you should always seek to be alone and comfortable and not have to have your children nagging you or bothering you or all the negative connotations they put upon innocent little children. And I was noticing more and more so online, you're not really getting good role models, even in fake movies, about what it is a mother should do and what does it mean to love your children fiercely. And I believe, from my own experience, is that loving your children fiercely is to put them first and to think of their condition in all affairs. So if you're going to be traveling, you're going to be taking a job, you're going to be taking classes, organizing your schedule, all of this, you have to think, how do I revolve this around my child's life? And then you accommodate them, especially for their age. And that to love your child is to not see them as an evil little burden. I've been reading, sadly, some recent articles as well, where a lot of children have become heavily abused. There's babies being abandoned in McDonald's trash cans, gas station trash cans, where these women on camera go into the bathroom with the baby, walk out without a baby. And sometimes they've already executed the baby. And I'm thinking to myself, what is causing these women to be like that? Now, I'm sure all of our societies throughout the history of the world have had evil women do evil things to their children. We know this, right? Aztecs had child sacrifice. We know too much, let's just put it that way. However, in today's age, you would think that would calm down. But if you notice, today, the negative view of children is pushed out more heavily than the positive view. Solutions are not given to mothers. Children are seen as a roadblock, a stumbling block, a bag of bricks upon your back. with no gain. And women who combat the feminist narrative are censored, silenced, harassed, stalked, doxxed, and worse. And so, because of this, good mothers, I feel they just don't want to participate in the battle in the arena of ideas and pushing out positive narratives around children and what it means to fiercely love your children. And to truly protect them. And to protect them from groomers. Protect them from any multicolored flag mafia. Any creepy person who seeks to talk about intimate adult topics with them. Any company that seeks to promote anti-religious values and anti-decency values. And this further makes me realize that a lot of mothers, in America especially, have let down their guard. And this is why you have battles going on with Disney. You have really perverted shows openly on television. You have the porn industry expanding and creating very disgusting genres, worse than before. And mothers have not done their duty as much, I'd say, and because of secular liberal feminist grooming out of the universities, to tell their children, this is not okay, this is not good for your health, your spiritual well-being. Power doesn't come from the subjugation of men, nor does it come from the body, and nor can you use your flesh as a weapon forever, right? And that you must level up your consciousness in a better way, and part of that is, I would say, unlocking, by the permission of Allah, this intense, authentic, fortified love of your children. And that doing so would help you to make sure that you don't make the same mistakes as other generations did. And with other generations, you can see how often the parents were around. You can see what they did, how they acted, how they behaved, and how the mother was always around. And sure, her kid might have been running around doing a couple things, but she was well aware of what her kid was doing, and children had to make more of an effort to get out of the sight of their mom. Today, though, however, I argue that because rebellion is promoted heavily within music starting since the 90s, at least specifically targeted towards little ones, and promoted on Cartoon Network, you have all those different shows, that we then have to wonder, what is going to be the fruits of that labor, and how do we combat it? And the way in which we combat it is by talking about the duties that reflect guardianship, and how if you fiercely have the bond with your child that you should try to nurture within yourself, and pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give you, that you will then have the proper energy and enthusiasm to go about being more watchful of what your little one consumes, who is around them, and so on and so forth. And you will begin to reject materialism. But if you notice, even some women, they leave their partner very, very easily. Some, we all know, have legitimate issues. But you do notice how more and more now feminists encourage single motherhood. And when a stepfather comes into the picture, lots of boys and girls get abused. And then the moms, they don't really think about that aspect, that risk, when they have begun to leave that person, leave that father. And some women get so mad at the man that they don't let the father around, even if he is of good caliber. They had a disagreement, maybe unfortunately they had an affair, but there's repairable things that can happen to their harsh breakup that can allow them to facilitate the healthiness of the children without the two parents always getting along, not preventing him from seeing the child, right? And that to fiercely protect your child is to put down your pain you have towards that person and let the father see his children. That the child needs the father, and even if you hated him for what he did to you, or what he hates you for what you did to him, you have to mutually, professionally work together to have a strong presence around the child. Because step-parents, I've never had a good step-parent, okay? I had 2 alcoholic stepmoms who were strippers, and then I had very alcoholic stepdad who was from Calcutta, India, who was a great chef, but he never used those skills to cook for us. So I always had to eat at the Chinese deli in Philly, which I've shared that story with you many a times. So there's that, but I never had to worry about any of them touching me or being weird. Okay? And so, for us to truly have fierce protection for our children, sacrifices must be made, and our happiness isn't always going to come first. And today it appears that due to the materialism, the vanity, the drug culture, the porn culture, the me first ego culture of the secular liberal feminist atheists, they often, because they don't fear their maker, they don't acknowledge evil, they don't think there'll be justice for what they'll do or what they have done, and so they don't have the same level of that type of protection that must occur naturally if one was religious, and authentically religious, that is. There seems to be more solutions out there, and I feel that if we talk about it and we openly discuss it, that we can come to a strong, fortified unison to help protect the children. And fiercely loving your own children helps you to also protect other people's children in your community, at the masjid, at the schools, just protecting children in general. I don't know if you've heard of this, but for example, when Lil Nas X, the hedonist and open Satanist, catered his music to little kids and then did a drag queen video where he was humping on the devil, this was a bait and switch. He went after people's kids and then promoted Satanism to them. And one particular commentator, Robbie Starbuck, and his wife made a couple comments on Twitter. This was a while ago when the song came out. And he was saying how this is very bad for children. And in the comments I read, because you can go on Twitter without having an account, but you can't reply or anything. And I saw these comments that F them kids, who gives a F about them kids, really nasty things towards children. And you begin to see how our society has degraded children as less than. Not only have we promoted abortion culture, and that is the literal dismembering and the crushing of the skull. The literal tools they use is they crush the skull. They rip off the arms while the little human being is alive. At 13, 14 weeks, the baby has fingers and toes, a heartbeat, and can kick and move, and is totally a human being. And the heartbeat is there. There's a soul there. But they feel nothing as this human being is cold. And because of that, because of movies being made, celebrities wearing t-shirts, children have been called parasites, a burden. I saw a stupid video today where 2 dumb dogs were dressed in baby clothes watching cartoons. And you may say that's cute and fun, but there was a time when fur babies was promoted by feminists to women to not have children and instead seek a career and have a dog. And I'm sure you've come across this type of persona. Have a cat, have a dog, whine. You see the similar patterns is my point. And so the fierce protection love that women used to have in a higher rate for their children has been artificially, yet the artificiality breeding into an authentic result, made women less protective of their children. And so I encourage women to openly talk about fiercely loving their children, to not be shy to say this. People might say, well, that just goes without saying. Maybe where you are, but I even saw the other day when I was on another app, and there was a post that said, I'd rather have plants than children. And I downvoted the post and I said, children are a blessing and joy, right? Shouldn't have said anything, but I did. Obviously, I know on a post like that, I'm going to be the minority. And I got a bunch of rude replies of people saying total negative things about kids. And I couldn't believe that these women would actually say a plant is better than a child. And I started looking more and more at this feminist art. which I've shared on the channel before, of how they'll say, a baby changing table. You put, where you change the diapers? Instead, you put the baby there, you close it, and out comes a cat. Right? You see the feminist art that has the only negative tone upon children. And so this is causing more and more women to think of their pregnancy as a burden. They lose their body. They gain a little bit of weight temporarily for a year and a half. Right? And they can't handle this time off. And it makes them resent their children. When their baby cries, the mothers aren't seen as, okay, you need a little time out. If a little baby has a tummy ache, they're going to cry. But you still have to have that nurturing part within your heart to say, look, I need to have mercy on this little baby. Instead, you'll see comics where people throw the baby out when he's crying. And then you look at how old folks' homes are getting fuller. And so we can see where the secular liberal atheist philosophy has led us. To where women won't care as much for their children, committing atrocities upon them. Those children growing up stuffing their parents in old folks' home. Now those feminists have moved on to attacking male guardianship. And so all these feminists do is they attack the natural order. They attack a mother staying home taking care of her children. They attack staying chaste with your husband. They attack polygamy. They attack people who speak out against OnlyFans and prostitution because it breeds human trafficking. They attack people who stick up for the life of innocent babies. If you notice, they're all about death, negativity. They say it's all about equality, it's just not true. Because we are already equal, we have different rights. In America, there is no right that a man has that a woman doesn't have. There is not. There just isn't. You can go to the store same as him. You can buy whatever he buys. You can get this job. You can do that. And maybe it's not about your gender that a boss doesn't want you. Maybe your portfolio sucks. Maybe your personality sucks. Maybe your last employer had a negative review about you and you didn't get the job. It's not all sexism in the world. It's not all misogyny. Right? So, to combat all this narrative, to push back against these sick feminists, we have to openly be proud of saying, yes, I fiercely love my children. I love my children. I'll always protect them. To remind people that is what you are supposed to do. And then reflecting upon what does it mean to protect, and what circumstances, and what nuances, what degrees. Okay, when do you let them have a little bit of freedom, but when are you still always there in the background? Right? They stuff their kid in daycare, then in school, then with a nanny, then to college. It's like, it's always dumping your kid away, get them out. And then those people getting older and then having this sort of lonely nest vibe within their home. And then they're lonely being stuffed into an old folks home. So we have to examine who caused this. Who caused this sick movement to spread? What has been the fruits of it? Without all the cliche talking points. So my solution is that we should openly talk about how much we love our children and to implement it within our lives. Let me know what you think.